Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third OCDSB Black Excellence discussion, the journey to achieving Black excellence. Although it is the third event, today's event is the first of its kind because it's a full student-led panel. I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. I would like to take a second to recognize that we are seated on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples. I would like to take this opportunity to commit myself to the struggle against the systems of oppression that have deprived Indigenous people of their land and denied them their rights to self-determination. Before we introduce the panelists for today's event, I would like to give a warm welcome to the Director of Education, Camilla Williams-Taylor.
Thank you so much, Alador. It's such a pleasure to be here tonight. There's nothing better than listening to a group of students engage in a discussion about excellence. When we talk tonight and we listen to the discussion about excellence, we do recognize that people of African descent have always thrived with the examples of excellence throughout history. And today we live in a community where excellence is the through line of the things that we do. One of the things that I like to really reinforce is that the notion of excellence in the Black community is not something that we're reaching for, but something that we're realizing because we realize that excellence is as a part of who we are as people of African descent. It's a question about the conditions where we're able to realize that excellence, grasp that excellence, and bring it forward. It's also really important for us to ensure that we understand that excellence and perfection are not synonymous, that in fact, it is in the striving for excellence, working hard towards achievement and realizing the talents that we all have, realizing our potential, that we will make mistakes and we will be imperfect, but it is in the continued journey where excellence is realized. So I'm really looking forward to listening to the voices of our young people tonight, because it's truly you that hold the wisdom of where it is that we need to go, not only as a district, but as a community. And I'm quite convinced that all of us will walk away with something new and with inspiration from your discussion this evening. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll be in the background and I'm going to pass it back to you, Alador, for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'd like to now properly introduce the third discussion series event titled The Journey to Achieving Black Excellence, which is the student-led discussion. And I want to thank everybody for listening today. And I hope everybody gained something valuable from today's discussion. I will begin by introducing myself. My name is Alador. I go by she, her pronouns. I graduated from Canterbury High School in the music program, specifically the strings program. And I am now a first-year student at McMaster University in the Bachelor of Health Sciences program. During my time at Canterbury and just over the years, my contribution and my just my passions for Black student associations began kind of with the Black Youth Forum class, which was as I was part of the 2020 to 2021 cohort of the Black Youth Forum class, and I also led my school's Black Student Association. I will now like to pass it over to the three other panelists to introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Faith Akiki. I go by she, her pronouns. I was a part of the 2021 graduating class at Woodruff High School. So I went to Nepean High School for 2 years, and then I switched over to Woodruff. There I was a part of the Ambassador Club. I was also on a bunch of sports teams. And as we all know, unfortunately, COVID hit and then things kind of happened, but I was still able to be involved with my school and more so the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board through the Black Youth Forum class that Alador was also a part of. Same thing with the other two panelists that will shortly introduce themselves, but I'm super happy to be here. I'm currently a first-year student at Carleton University. I am in the Bachelor of Public Affairs and Policy Management program with an undeclared specialization, but we'll get back to that eventually. Thanks, Alador. And I'll pass it on to the next panelist.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kojo Nyarko. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a 2020 graduate of Colonel By Secondary School, where I was involved in the IB program, as well as leading the Black Excellence Club at our school, as well as being a member of the Black Youth Forum. And I'm currently a second-year University of Ottawa Health Science student. And at the university, I'm involved in some biochemistry and public health research. I'm really excited to get to talk to you all today.
Hello, everybody. My name is David O'Sullivan. I go by he, him pronouns, and I'm currently a grade 12 student at Colonel By Secondary School. I'm also in the IB program like Kojo was, and I now lead the Colonel By Black Excellence Club for my graduating year. So I'm super excited to be here with everybody, and I hope we have a good discussion today.
Amazing. Thank you so much to all the panelists. So to jumpstart our discussion, my first question to you all is, what does excellence entail for you? What is your personal definition of what excellence is?
Yeah, so to start things off, I really want to kind of echo some of the things that Director of Education Camilla Williams-Taylor said, because I really feel that excellence is working hard and persevering to really achieve your goals for the benefit of your community, for your family, and for yourself. I view excellence not as, a really objective goal and something that you have to achieve, but I really believe that excellence is in the process and it's pursuing becoming the best version of yourself. I believe that, we often, especially at a young age, don't know what that best version of ourselves is. However, I feel that it's, going through that process of discovery and that's what Black excellence is. And I also think that it entails being honest with yourself and identifying areas that you're weak in as well as you're strong in, and really just being a bit constructively critical so that you can really build yourself up.
I see excellence as a very kind of individual level of a goal where it's more about looking inside and reflecting on yourself and your talents and your strengths and realizing your full potential. I think what Camille Williams-Taylor said about working hard to make sure you become the best version of yourself really resonated with me, because to me, that's what Black excellence is. If you see your talents and you see what you're capable of, is taking that to the next level and going as far as with that as you can. I think that's truly excellence to me.
No, I resonate with what David and Kojo said 100%. And I think for me personally, excellence, I've always seen it as a mindset. I've seen it as, it's a level of intent in all the work that you do. What is the reason? What is the driving force behind all of your passions, all of your interests, whatever it might be? And are you trying to live the best version of yourself possible? And I think when it comes to excellence, and what Camille Williams-Taylor said that really did resonate with me was perfection doesn't equal excellence. And I think we need to emphasize that throughout our lives. Even if you're having a bad day or if you're having a bad year, that doesn't mean that you're not achieving excellence. And that doesn't mean that your journey is being derailed from that quote unquote, perfect line to achieving excellence. So I think, excellence, it's all about that mindset for me personally.
Aldor, you took all of the words out of my mouth. I think that it's really important that, we realize we're not always going to be giving, quote unquote, 100% of our effort, of our time, our energy, as we've all gone through, the struggles of lockdowns and, being stuck at home, maybe feeling isolated or just frustrated, quite frankly. I think that, it's okay for us to have off days and for us to also realize and really recognize and appreciate that those off days are ultimately contributing to, our overall goals or whatever they may be. We're like batteries. We can't just drain and then all of a sudden, keep at it. Like, we need time to charge. And for all of our, listeners and people tuning in, I think just something to keep reminding yourself every day is that it's okay to take a break. It's okay, to not always be giving 100% of what you have to offer. That's just the beauty of life. So thank you. I again really resonate with everything that you all said.
And to touch a little bit on that aspect of recharging and everything, I think it's really hard to find that balance between pushing yourself to your limits and also going too far and wearing yourself to the bone. So I think a part of achieving excellence is really finding that balance and find what works for you and what's the best use of your time. Because if you side of the coin is just, it's not going to work out for you. It's not going to work out for your journey. So you really need to be constantly at it, constantly thinking about how can you make the best use of your time, whether you need to rest or where you need to push hard and work.
Yeah, I really want to echo what Faith and David just said there, because that's something that I've personally, struggled with a little bit. I always, feel that I need to be like actively pushing forward so that I can, achieve my goals. But one thing that I've realized is that often it's really taking breaks and taking a step back that really allows you to take a step forward. And my mentality has really shifted towards I honestly think that it's often, productive to do nothing, because at times when you're doing nothing, that's really what it takes to recharge and, being able to give it your all when it's necessary.
1000%. And it's really interesting to hear how each one of our definitions of excellence differs so greatly. And I think that's the beauty of it, because everybody has their own journey, everybody has their own perspective when it comes to what excellence entails. And, my question for you all, and I think it's something really interesting to consider. Do you think of excellence as the journey or solely the end goal?
Personally, for me, excellence feels like the culmination of all your efforts. So once you go through the journey, once you've achieved that thing that you were striving towards, I think that's where excellence really comes in. That's when you really take the fruits of your labor and you really say, okay, I've struggled, I've worked, I've rested, I've worked, I've rested, and then finally I have something to show for it. I think to me, having something to show for it really determines excellence.
Yeah, David, I hear what you're saying, but I actually kind of see it kind of the opposite way. So I really perceive excellence as a journey, because I don't think that there's, any specific end goal that defines whether or not we've achieved excellence. And I really think that it's the process of working towards some goal. So often, things don't go as anticipated, but I really don't believe that that doesn't mean that you didn't, achieve excellence. I really think that you achieve excellence just by, striving for it and trying to improve yourself.
100%. And I think, when we talk about the end goal versus the journey, I think it's a battle, because sometimes we might say that, like, we see excellence as the journey rather than the end goal, but then sometimes we fail to actually see it as the end goal. And when we're actually striving to achieve excellence, we see those hurdles and we only look for that sort of validation of achieving that goal, and only feel like, okay, now I feel good about myself. Now I feel like I did it. Right. So do any of you resonate with that kind of feeling?
Honestly, when working to achieve something and finally achieve it, I find that a lot of the time, if I wasn't enjoying myself during the process, then the overall achievement doesn't feel as great or as validating. It feels like it kind of just feels like empty, like, or more of a sense of relief that those experiences and those struggles are over. But because I didn't enjoy the process, because I didn't try to pull as much as I could from it, then the achievement it's minimal. It's very lackluster in my life, regardless of how great it may seem to other people.
David, I actually that got me thinking. I have definitely experienced this myself, but I think that another part of this whole like journey concept, this journey to achieving, our goals or whatever it may be, it can be extremely, disencouraging to see other people, achieving their goals much more faster than you are. Something that, as minorities, as people who may be experiencing other external pressures or internal pressures, something that we may be going through a lot more as opposed to our peers. It's important to remember that, our journeys are unique to us, and we're not really doing any good by, looking at other people and being like, wow, they only did, 2 months of X, Y, and Z to get to where they are, but I've been doing this for 4 years. So there's a lot of power in just, taking your time and accepting that things come and go. And you really have to be patient when it comes to that sort of stuff. And, going back to what I said before, recharging your battery and just knowing that, with time, things will come.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love how you said that, Faith. And I think I really, really do like that, how you brought that up, because a lot of the time we tend to compare ourselves to the person sitting next to us, or to a person that might have seen from the outside a journey that seems a lot more effortless. And, although we don't necessarily see everything that goes into somebody achieving their goals, we can definitely derail ourselves and internally think that, okay, it didn't take as hard for them. So that means I am not achieving the same level of excellence, So I think sometimes we see those things as distractions along the journey. We see a bump or a hurdle as though it's inhibiting our road to success or our road to achieving whatever goal it might be. But, what has taken me a long time to truly understand and learn is that those bumps and hurdles or so-called distractions from your entire journey, that is what excellence is. Each one of those moments where you feel like I just took a step back because I didn't do too well on that test and I'm not going to get the mark that I want to get, or I didn't get this opportunity and somebody else did. Each one of those moments are going to be your proudest moments because you picked yourself back up and you were able to keep going. So, it's not necessarily the result, but getting through it one step at a time. And I wonder, have any of you ever felt some of those distractions making you feel like you only achieve excellence once you've achieved your goal? Or did it come from within and rather maybe like stemmed from comparing your success to those around you?
I think, especially throughout the IB diploma program, where it's very heavily academically competitive, and we have kids getting like high 90 marks on like basically every test, excelling in every aspect of life, of academics, of clubs, of this initiative, that initiative. It can get pretty exhausting looking at everybody else and what they're doing, and then look at yourself and saying, what am I doing wrong? Because it feels like you're all in the same situation, you're all in the same circumstance, you're on that same little cohort of 180 kids taking the same program, same courses. And then you could sometimes it takes a real step back to realize that even if you are kind of all in that same program, all in those same circumstances, your situations and your individual backgrounds will make a huge difference, and your motivations for what you want to do in later in life is going to be different. And also to understand that while we may be together in this cohort for 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, these things can change. And kind of getting that perspective of long-term life and long-term goal setting and long-term living to really reaching into the future to see what kind of life you want to make for yourself, that'll make the journey to excellence a lot more broad and allow you to dream more and to keep persevering, to keep pushing.
Yeah, really just to echo what David said, I really agree, because I think that the only person we can really compare to is ourselves. I think everyone else really has a different situation, different goals. And I think the best way to really, judge or evaluate where you're going is to look at your own life and maybe, look at some progress that you've made. I think it's easy to get caught up in the short term. Maybe you don't do well on a couple tests and you think, I'm regressing or whatever. But I think if you really look, back in time and look at the big picture, I think we all, often see a progression, and it's that progression that I think is what's important to focus on.
No, 100%. And, focusing on, the progress every single day. And I like the idea of being a better version of yourself than you were the day before. And although it might sound cheesy, I think it's very much true, And do you ever feel like, as Black students, sometimes we feel as though we can't fail as much, or we can't have as much, our progress needs to look greater than the person right next to us?
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, I think I've been the only Black student in my class since like grade 3. So for the past 9 years or so, I have been the only Black kid that a lot of kids in elementary, middle school, high school have seen really. So to me, when I think about that and when I look around, I see people that don't look like me, who don't have the same background, don't have the same situation. I kind of take on, like, to quote American Son, kind of the face of the race, where I have to represent what Black people are and I have to show excellence, or else, I'm letting down a lot more people than just myself. And I think that kind of burden is placed on us because a lot of times it's difficult to find a community within these different schools, especially growing up in the suburbs in Ottawa. There ain't that many Black kids, I'm gonna be honest. But finding it's about to get over that. It's about just finding internal peace. You have to make peace with yourself that you are an individual regardless of your race, and you can only really represent yourself, and it is not your fault and it's not your burden to take on if someone looks at you and tries to judge an entire race based on that. That is not your responsibility, and you cannot put that on yourself, because that is too harsh of a punishment to put on you.
100%. And the idea of it not being a responsibility, I feel like we don't remind ourselves that enough. It's a lot easier said than done. And I always find myself even failing to remember that. And, thinking of, those external kind of motivations or those external pressures that you might feel about, representing your people, representing your community. I know for myself, when I was at Canterbury in the music program, in the strings program specifically, I was like one of 100 students, the only Black student, right? And then I'm an Eritrean Canadian. So when one of my teachers is like, I saw an Eritrean, blah, 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 some like outside somewhere. And I was like, oh, no way. And they felt the need to tell me because I'm the only example of an Eritrean person that they've ever seen in their life. So you feel like, the way you carry yourself and the way you present yourself in that space is going to taint the image of your entire community if you fail once. And I can't even stress enough how untrue that is. And I think we all put that sort of pressure on ourselves to be quote unquote as perfect as we can be. And that can also be a very toxic mentality to get into. That sort of added pressure that we might feel, a lot of the time when we're talking about like those added pressures, it can be a positive added pressure, but it can also be an added pressure that you do not need. You don't need those added pressures. You can thrive and you can push yourself and find those internal drives without having other people kind of feeling like you're going to disappoint. And I think, we can all resonate with that, but I'll let everyone share as well.
David and Alador, I think you brought up a very, very interesting point about, this lack of representation, especially in our society. And, growing up, I'm sure all of you can kind of relate to this as well, but, growing up, whether it be sitting at lunch and having people like point a finger at your food and be like, ew, what is that? Instead of asking something more kind, like, what is that? Like, would you be able to explain it to me? Changing the connotation of that interaction. And that all ties back to the importance of, fostering a healthy learning environment. So especially in school, and we all spend so much time in school. So to our educators watching, I think something that I really want you all to kind of digest is that your words really matter. And you taking the time to check up on a student and, ask them about what's going on in their life and, what's going on in like terms of their head with personal goals and stuff, that helps them build a sense of independence. And again, further ties to them owning their story. I'm 18 years old and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. I can just imagine, 14, 13, even 12-year-old Faith being like, what is the point of life? Like, what am I doing here? What's going on? And, it's a lot more difficult to do that when you don't feel safe, you don't feel appreciated. And then, like you all said, when you don't feel represented. So again, representation, definitely something that that needs to be talked about a lot more.
Yeah, really just to build on the idea of representation, I think it's something that, often gets forgotten about because often our dreams and what we aim to do is really impacted by what we see. And we often, envision, glass ceilings in areas that we don't see other people, representing in that area. So for me, I'm interested in going in the healthcare space. And I think before I, had groups of mentors and people who really, I guess, kind of showed me and opened my eyes to the fact that, it's possible for me to, achieve this. I really thought that, like, it felt like a very distant goal. And I think that, my confidence in that area was a lot lower. So I think that, for educators, I think it's important to make sure that you really show students that whatever they're interested in, they can do it. And that they really don't have to conform to any external societal barriers.
100%. And I think when it comes to educators, you all have such a huge responsibility in a way to, tailor your methods and tailor the way you approach students based on one's lived experiences and based on one's background. And that takes open communication, and that takes, learning, being willing to listen and being willing to learn. And I think back to that idea of those extrinsic pressures, you have the ability to be such a positive extrinsic motivation for students. And, having those sort of positive motivations, we can tie it back to those negatives one as well. But I think this is a really important thing to talk about, when as Black students, those internal motivations versus those external motivations, how have you been able to separate the ones that drive you in a positive way versus the ones that have been inhibiting your sort of morals or your mindset when just going about your days and trying to achieve excellence?
So I guess, oh, sorry, David.
No,
Go
you got
ahead.
it. You got it. You got it. You got it.
I just wanted to reiterate exactly what Aladar said. I mean, there's so much power in owning your story, and, parents, educators, to everyone watching. Again, I think you really, really need to understand how grateful, your students, your kids will be if you just, extend that level of how was your day? What did you learn? And words matter. They really, really do. And sometimes when I'm, struggling with my university classes, I'll think of, things that some of my past educators, even my parents, have said. And that itself is comforting. And it's a good reminder that, I'm on my journey and I don't need to compare myself to what other people are doing. There's so much power in being able to say, this is my lived experience. This is what I want to do. So again, just a reminder to be kind. Yeah.
I think for me personally, when it comes to educators on my road to excellence, I remember kind of starting in grade 9, especially with very few Black students around. I think I've had one, maybe two Black teachers in the OCDSB, and I've been in the OCDSB since I was a junior kindergarten, so 14th year now. And my grade 9 science teacher, shout out to Madam Savage, she's great. So yeah, she was my grade 9 science teacher, wonderful woman, taught me a lot of things, especially, and she's also helping me out a lot with the Black Excellence Club right now, and I'll definitely remember her for years to come. But you know, I think it's really important for teachers to understand the lived experiences of their students and to put away the biases that they may have towards them, especially when it comes to Black students. I know for a fact that especially when English teachers have to deal with literature such as, To Kill a Mockingbird or anything with the racial connotations, a lot of teachers tend to shy away from the conversation of race and tend to kind of shove it under the rug and give it very little importance and try to get to the meat of the text or to the connotations or the literary terms and kind of avoid the entire conversation of race, especially when there are Black students in the classroom. I think so many teachers don't have that education level when it comes to certain lived experiences of their students that they feel uncomfortable to have that conversation. And I think it's so much more impactful, especially to me as a Black student, to have a teacher that's confident enough to have those conversations and to moderate and to shy down and to shun away racist comments and to really have a fruitful discussion where everybody can actually learn. Because if people are too scared to try to learn and to try to risk to learn about something about racism, then all these issues will keep creeping up because the main root of racism is ignorance. If we're not teaching it in schools, if we're not allowing kids to learn about it, then the issues will perpetuate.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when it comes to educators feeling comfortable in that space to kind of, understand or even just listen from lived experiences, I think it just takes, it takes that added willingness to learn and unlearn all of your biases and willingness to, just educate yourself from a level of understanding to your students as well. And I think a really good point is not just the students that might be at the top of the class, but to every single student, because every single student has something valuable to share. And I want to tie it back to even beyond the classroom setting. setting. Do you find that, when it comes to feeling those external pressures, do you also find those external pressures beyond the classroom setting as well?
Yeah, personally, I do feel a lot of external pressures to really, I feel, often like elevate myself to a higher level, because I often feel that as one of the few Black students in my area, I have a responsibility not only to do well for the sake of myself, but also to open doors for other people. And I feel that often, whether this is correct or not, what I do is going to impact people's perception of Black people in general. Because when I walk into a space, I often feel that there's an expectation of who I am before people have already met me. And I feel a responsibility often to really try and break down that expectation and really just show people who I am. So for example, when I'm in class, one of the first things I do is often, I try and participate and, show that, I care and I'm paying attention, rather than, because I often feel that if I don't do that, a lot of people are going to assume that, I'm not taking it seriously. So I think that it's in a lot of, smaller actions that we're really trying to often assert ourselves, and show who we are, rather than, allowing society to determine that. So I think in that sense, external pressures do, control, in a sense, how I have to act.
And I actually have a little anecdote to go along with that, especially when it comes to the classroom. Those external pressures can really get to you. So when I was back in grade 5, again, one of the only Black students in the room, it was towards the end of the year, and we were just having a little discussion about how our perceptions of each other have changed over the course of the year. And I remember one of my friends speaking up and saying that back when he was in like grade 3, grade 4, he had met some unintelligent Jamaican kids, and he then made the assumption from there that all Jamaican kids were stupid. And then he met me, another Jamaican kid in his class, and he realized, wow, you're really intelligent. And thinking back on that, I'm thinking, I at the moment I felt a lot of pride that I was this really intelligent kid and that I was kind of going above my race. I was better than other people. And then coming now 17, turning 18 this month, I'm thinking, wow, that's a very, very toxic mentality to have, because now that kid is probably seeing, hopefully not anymore, but that kid probably saw me as something other than Black, something greater, and that the color of my skin was just kind of an added feature. But even if I was excelling, even if I was demonstrating excellence at that time, it wasn't Black excellence. It was just excellence, period. And the Black part was just not incorporated. I, I to this day, I still think that student saw me as just not Black. And now that I think about it, I think, wow, even if I excel, even if I do all these great things, I might not change people's perceptions. And that's why not putting that burden on yourself is so important, because you put that burden on yourself and you do the best you can, and you don't accept the fact that you're an individual, then you come back and you think, wow, I don't have as much power as I thought I did.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing, David. And, I think a lot of the time when there's those sort of pressures from other people to be different than your people, and I think that's such a toxic mentality. And I've gotten those comments that, oh, but you're different than other people, and I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what is that supposed to be a compliment? Because those microaggressions are so, they truly do negatively impact people so greatly. And I think when we're talking about, those extrinsic motivations, I personally have had so many positive extrinsic motivations, like my mom signing me up for music and telling me to practice for 1 hour every single day, even the days that I might not have wanted to practice for 1 hour. Those were positive motivations that turned into internal drive as I got older. When those intrinsic, like when that external pressure disappeared as I got older, I still wanted to do it because it was kind of ingrained in me. But, just because I internalize those values, I'm aware that some extrinsic motivations never become internalized. While this is a great example of like a positive motivation, sometimes extrinsic motivations will never become your own because you might not value that, or you might not want that, or that might not be one of your passions. So, how do you work through that? How do you work through not wanting something that someone else wants for you? And I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with, and something that a lot of us kind of continuously try to kind of, work towards combating internally, and, work towards kind of figuring out when we're consciously thinking about how we can derail ourselves from those negative connotations of what other people might think of you. And I kind of want to touch on something that Faith had brought up another time when we were talking about this, but those conscious versus unconscious journey to achieving excellence. When you're consciously achieving excellence, and when you're consciously trying to, what does that even mean? Consciously trying to achieve excellence. I think Faith can touch on this a little bit more, but when you're thinking about, let me consciously today, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do something great. That's usually not how it goes. You usually wake up and you're like, I'm going to go about my day. A lot of the time we're unconsciously doing everything that we're doing. And I'd like Faith to touch on this a little bit more, because you said it so beautifully.
Thank you. I think, as someone who is the eldest child of immigrants, there are definitely some things that I do because I know other people want me to do them. And so again, because of this, conscious versus unconscious thing, it's very, very tricky to navigate, especially as a youth, as a student. And I guess even throughout your life, it's very difficult to, differentiate English, differentiate between, what do I want versus what do other people, example, parents, grandparents, siblings, cousins, etc. Well, what do they want me to do? So I guess growing up, my way of trying to figure out, what I really want to do versus what I want other people, to do for me is what makes me happy. If something is not working out, if I'm frustrated, and I've figured this out with music. I used to take piano lessons, and, I was like, what, I don't enjoy this instrument as much, but I'd rather play this one instead. Having those conversations with those people around me were super beneficial because it gave me some sort of clarity. And, obviously the difference between playing an instrument versus picking, for example, a program to study is greater. But communication, that is something that I've really learned to appreciate. And I don't know if either David or Kojo wants to touch on that, but I think that as someone who, again, is the child of immigrants, people pushing me to do certain things has both negatively and positively affected. But for the negatives, it's made me frustrated, and it's held me back from doing certain things because I, ended up having all these thoughts in my head, and that can lead to doubts and whatnot. But David or Kojo, if you'd like to add, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to touch on that. Yeah, so as a child of immigrants and also the eldest child, I really, I understand what you're saying. And I think for me, it's been pretty positive, but it was kind of lucky just because I think a lot of my, goals kind of aligned with what my parents wanted me to do. I want to pursue like healthcare and science, and, a lot of immigrant parents, they're like STEM and that type of area. So, for me, a lot of the, the external pressure, motivation to, do well, those are things that, I intrinsically wanted to do as well. So for me, I didn't really have that type of, conflict. And I felt that, really pushed me forward. It was a good support. However, I do recognize that in situations where what you want to do and what your parents want to do don't exactly align, that's where things can get, pretty complicated, and you can start to feel, am I disappointing them because I'm not going in the direction that they want, especially after, all the sacrifices and things that they made to, get us in this position. But I think it's really important to remember that, this is your life, and ultimately it isn't your parents. And although, you should respect, what they're trying to say, it's also, important to go in your own direction and make sure that at the end of the day, you can be happy with who you're becoming and the journey that you're on.
Beautifully said. And I think the idea of this is your life very much is. And I think we always need to constantly remind ourselves that those pressures are for to help us succeed. And the truth is everybody wants to see you succeed. All those external pressures, whether they might feel sometimes like, it's too much of a pressure, it's derailing your what you intend for yourself. it's for the goal of you succeeding. And if you truly stay true to your values and your morals and kind of what inspires you, what passions you, always thinking about that internally will help you figure out how to separate those external pressures as well. And everybody has mentioned, some of those positive pressures. And I think we should touch on that a little bit. Who have been those positive pressures, whether it's teachers, educators, family members, friends, mentors, whoever it might be. I want each of the panelists to touch a little bit on, who have been some of the biggest and most influential mentors throughout your lifetime.
I think the biggest mentor in my life has always been my mom. I've always been a mama boy. I'm sorry. But, especially growing up, my mom could kind of see right through me. It's like from the day I was born, she's like, I know exactly who this kid is. And she's known me better than I've known myself for my entire life. And I still think that's true to this day. And because she knows me so well, she sees through all my nonsense. I'll use that word because I don't think I'm allowed to curse on here. But she sees exactly who I am, and she sees my talents, she sees my passions, and she sees my weaknesses. And I think especially the fact that she sees my weaknesses, and she's a Black woman, she's strong, way too damn strong, but she kind of uses that strength in a way to kind of wring my arm to see my weaknesses too. Especially growing up, being like both athletic and academically proficient, I always had a little bit too much confidence when it came into certain regards, especially with interpersonal relationships. And my mom would always look at me dead in the eye and be like, boy, you done messed up. She would always be holding me accountable. And I think in life, those people can be very frustrating when you feel like they're always nagging you for some weakness or some downfall that you may have, some shortcoming. But I think those people are incredibly important because they keep you honest. They make sure you use that talent, you use that strength, and you can actually channel it towards something good, and that your weaknesses and your shortcomings don't hold you back to that level. And my mom, I think, has done a great job of making sure that my eye is always on the ball. I'm always looking towards that thing I want to achieve, and I'm not lazing around and just letting my talent to go to waste. So I think for me, my mom is definitely probably the most influential person in my life.
Yeah, for me, I really have a long list of mentors and people who really helped me in my journey and are still helping me. So just start off, I have my family. They've been, with me the whole time. And, at times when, I would, lack confidence in myself, they were always there to really, build me up and just tell me that I can do it. And also they were there to, call me out, in situations where I'm not doing what I have to do and not really handling my business. They really, they were the first ones to tell me in situations where, a lot of people wouldn't. So that's something I'm always appreciative of. And at Colonel Bai, I want to shout out Miss Savage, Mr. Geary, and Mr. Pai. They were the ones who really, helped us start our Black Excellence Club there. And I'm really appreciative for that because it not only, set something up for future students to have, but it also was a big part of, my own personal growth and really developing my, leadership skills and really just self-confidence. And that's an experience that I'm never going to forget. So I'm appreciative of that. And I also want to thank Ms. Cadet and Ms. Lawrence from the Black Youth Forum. Once again, that was a similar experience where I got to meet, a bunch of, great individuals. And, we really got to, gel as a group. And coming from, the suburbs, I found that, I never really had a group of, a lot of Black students that large. We all really got along. And I think that bond was something I'll value. And currently, I'm in two mentorship programs. One of them is with Jaku Kambi, and I have a mentor there, Prince Bado. And Prince, we have conversations pretty often, and he's really just helped me on, my journey towards, achieving, professional goals, but also just, really just, life things. And, I appreciate his mentorship. And I'm also doing some work in healthcare. It's led by Dr. Kirmanta. And once again, that's another leader in the community who really, took me under his wing and really helped me to, get exposed in like the medical and the research area. So really like across my whole journey and like to this day, I'm really interacting with a lot of people who are there for me and they're really lifting me up. And I hope that one day I can be someone who, lifts up other people in the community, and I can help, other people achieve their goals.
Kojo, you mentioned Miss Cadet and Miss Lawrence and even Mr. Sutton. I don't think between the four of us, we could ever repay any of those individuals, or Miss Agard, for everything that they really, really taught us throughout the past, 4 or 5 years. I know some of us have kind of, come as the others have left within the Black Student Forum. But to go back to Miss Cadet specifically, who was one of my teachers at Woodruff High School, I don't think Miss Cadet knows how much I love her for truly, truly teaching me that it's okay to say no. I'm someone who feels the need to always, be busy, to always be doing things. But Miss Cadet really, really taught me that, you have to take a break sometimes. And it's okay. It's okay to say no. It's okay to reason with people and to figure things out, because at the end of the day, you have a life, and within and throughout all aspects of your life, you cannot give. You do have to recharge, as I've, been saying. Touching on Miss Agard. Miss Agard, thank you for always pushing me to try and be, a teacher. I currently work at a healthcare clinic in the East End of Ottawa, and I tutor Hello.
You're back.
I am back. I had to pause for a second. I think someone reset the router in my house. My apologies, but in case you missed it, Miss Agard, thank you for getting me into that field of teaching. It's super important to give back to our children. I suppose Mr. Minoklual, president of Presidential Hoops, my guy, you have given me everything. From the mentorship program throughout the summer to always being someone I can rely on if I need a call, or if I have an idea that I want to put into action, reiterating this concept of the importance of community. That's really something that we as people need and come from, having that sort of structure. And I guess, some of my best friends, Hannah, Ariane, Aaron, all of you for holding me accountable and just making sure that, I'm okay, checking in on me and my parents. Again, Kojo, and to whoever else watching that can relate, being children of immigrants isn't always easy, but I really, really appreciate my parents for everything that they have and continuously do and give to me. Yeah. Alador, I think you're the last of the four.
Yes, that was so beautiful to listen to everybody's thank yous in life and all the mentors that have passionate all of you guys. But, for me personally, I think one of my biggest mentors in life has been my older sister, who has pushed me in all aspects of life and always been somebody that I looked up to, always been called Mini Sador, which is my sister's name, and always being so flattered with that comment. But no, just the way that she's always keep me in line with my keep me in check with everything in life, and been academic support, life support, every type of support that I could ever ask for. And I think for me personally, some of my biggest mentors were people that saw things in myself that I didn't even see myself. And Jeffrey Siness is one of them, who works at the University of Toronto. And I met him last year during Ethics Bowl, which is a competition that I took part of. And he was someone who continuously reminded me of kind of what it means to be a leader and how I can truly use all my skills and use my skills to the furthest of my potential. And he always constantly, just inspired me to do better, but also just reassured me that he was there to further me in everything that I want to do. And just truly just wants me to succeed in everything. And I always appreciate mentors in life like that. As for high school teachers and high school mentors, I can't even begin to say that list. Minamela Jones, for the endless hours that you've always taken, those teachers that truly put you at the top of their priority at times when you don't even feel like you should be their top priority, that feeling internally is unmatched. And I'm Hewlett as well, Miss Potts, Miss Carlson, Mr. Sinkus, all of you guys for always supporting me, but as well as some of my music mentors as well, like Janice Ma, some of my violin and piano mentors, and just the way that you've all always inspired me to push my absolute hardest and always been such a driving force in my life. And I want to echo what everybody else said about Miss Cadet, Miss Lawrence, Miss Eggard, everyone in the Black Youth Forum class. And I think you brought together so many Black students that we've never seen come together. I think seeing a class of 60-something Black students in that space and going from junior kindergarten to grade 12 with having only 1 or 2 Black students throughout your life, that was insane. And, just how good we all felt internally, knowing that there's so many individuals in this room that can help us, and we can inspire each other and keep pushing each other to achieve excellence in whatever version that might be for ourselves. It's just such a beautiful feeling. And I loved listening to what everybody had to say about all the people that have been pushing you, because I think that's such a meaningful thing to think about from the educator perspective, from the parents' perspective, from all perspectives. What does a meaningful impact look like on students like us? And before we end off, I would like to save the next 10 minutes for each of the panelists to share something meaningful with the listener. It's your platform and it's your time.
All right, so what I want to share is to make sure that, in addition to fighting against, external forms of oppression, I think it's important that we tackle internalized oppression that we often have, within ourselves. I think we often set a lot of subconscious barriers as to what we can and cannot do. And one thing I just want to leave with you is to make sure that you're, confident in your abilities. And I think that, often it's very easy to look around and say, this is why I can't do this. I have all these barriers. And of course, those barriers are there. But I think that before looking to reasons why you can't do something, I think you should look at why you can do it. And I think when things get hard, you should really, first ask yourself, what can I do to, achieve this goal? And really just, start with the things that are in your control. Because, in this world, we really, generally there's a lot of things that we don't control. There's a lot of, difficult parts, but I think that if you really start from, where you have control, you can really, improve things for yourself.
I think my biggest takeaway, or something that I would want, our viewers to take away, especially educators, but to everyone listening, you may not exactly realize it, but your words really, really matter. And asking a child at the end of class, are you okay? You pulling, aside someone and just, checking in on them, that matters. And that sticks with students, that sticks with kids. I think establishing this sort of relationship built on trust further fosters a greater sense of comfort and community, and then further a healthier learning environment, which is what we need, which is what kids need, especially in elementary and middle and high school, in order to be ready for the real world. So please just acknowledge that, you asking like, hey, how was your day? Or you asking if someone's doing okay, like that really, really means a lot. So my gift is to remember that your words matter.
I think my gift to all the students listening, especially if you're, starting high school, maybe grade 10, grade 11, remember that while the path to excellence can be lonely, you are not alone. And it is okay to ask for help. I think, honestly, I speak from personal experience when I say, growing up when I didn't face that much adversity, or I didn't face that many challenges in school, coming into grade 12, being faced with all these deadlines, university applications, end of IB, all these different deadlines that I have to meet. I think my greatest failure this year has been not asking for help when I needed it. I think not recognizing the support that is around you, not seeing who to turn to when you are struggling, I think will lead you in a world of disaster. I think putting aside your pride, putting down your guard and saying, I need help, is not a show of weakness. It is in fact a show of strength to say, I need support. How can we solve this problem? And once you realize that there are people around there that can help you, you will become much, much more successful in what you do. Because excellence, it may feel like a singular journey, but it is truly a collaborative effort with everybody you meet along the way. So just remember that.
1000%. And I think each of the panelists have shared something so meaningful and so powerful. And me personally, what I want to share is the power in listening to understand, both to the students and to the educators. Enter every space with the intent to listen, to learn. I especially emphasize this for the educators, to learn from how you can support your students. Every student has something valuable to share in regards to how to best support their educational journey. And you'll be surprised as to how much you can learn from your students. I've had so many productive conversations with my educators, leaving knowing that I was heard and feeling as though I was heard. I also saw how the impact, both sides, both ends, the impact that had on me and the impact that had on my educators. Listen to your peers and those around you, to the students, be willing to speak up for yourself. And to the educators, finally, I just want to end it off by saying you can learn so much of how to best support your students of different backgrounds and different life experiences by listening to understand and listening as their equal. Thank you everyone for listening today. And thank you so much for joining us for the third Black Excellence discussion, the journey to achieving excellence. And to the students, always remember, you are excellence. Excellence is a mindset and it's what you take on every single day. Before ending off, I want to end off with a quote by Lawrence Miller that says, excellence is not an accomplishment, it's a spirit, a never-ending process. Thank you everybody for listening.